So when you published that story and you went into significant, in fact, I reread it this morning just to kind of jog my memory. And I remember I was just telling you, I felt every single emotion that when I first read it. Again, I was like, wow, the level of detail is incredible. When you published that for the first time, what was the reaction to that?
I think people were stunned because nobody expected a story on Bahria. Nobody. Now I think that, obviously people have begun, nobody would even raise a finger point a finger at Bahria before. They wouldn't, it was like, he who must not be named kind of a thing, So that kind of broke that,
that barrier.
Yeah. It broke that. People were absolutely, I've never got that kind of reaction to any story as I have to that, because that was the first. Yeah.
How did your editors feel about that coming in their paper? How did the publisher feel? Because, ultimately it is their, paper, and they will also have to deal with the repercussions.
Well, I think you'd have to ask the editor that, but I know the editor was very supportive. Initially, he was a little unsure because, as everybody else, he didn't really know what was actually happening. Right. So when we brought all the evidence, showed what was collected, all the witness statements, everything, whatever we had, and the documents, of course, how the law had been changed simply to facilitate the real estate development.
I didn't even know you could swap pieces of land to amalgamate.
Well, I didn't either.
Hey, I have some land there, I have some land there. Yeah. Let's just put it all together.
Yeah, and let's put it in the most lucrative area.
Yes, right next to the highway.
Yeah, let's take it from the boonies and put it in the lucrative part of Malay. Yeah, I didn't know that. So that was a real learning experience, and in that we had the assistance of two retired land officials who kind of read through the laws and the fine print. My colleague and I, we didn't know about this stuff, so we learned a lot. But that's the thing, you have to work in a team. Most stories require not just that one person. Investigative stories, you need to have a team.
How big was the team on this one?
On this one, I would say this was about 6 people or so. I mean, including these guys who worked with us very closely, the land officials.
And you've done how many more on this topic since?
I
think about 4 total, 4 or 5.
At least 5.
5.
Yeah.
2 recently.
2 recently. 1 a couple of years ago.
Why did these 2 recent ones come back up after a brief hiatus?
Because it was time to see what they were up to. And we did.
Because it's 8 years since your first story.
That's the first story.
And then you had something in between, 1 or 2 in between, and suddenly 2 in the last month.
One. Yeah. There was just so much to uncover. I had been trying to find this information, access this information about, are they paying those installments on that? There was just no way. It was like a black hole. There was just no way, no reporter, no, really senior lawyers. Nobody could access that information.
Do you think your original story was a driver to why they had to end up paying the installments and the
absolutely.
Subsequently?
Absolutely, because when our story came out, there were a lot of petitions that were pending, and there were hearings being held, and the court would keep asking for various the MDA, Malay Development Authority, or the Board of Revenue Sindh to assist them, the Surveyor of Pakistan. They would ask them for questions. They would be just stonewalled every time. They would be just basically because they were all colluding. They were either colluding or they were scared of the people involved. So nobody was giving them the information they needed to really progress in those petitions. So when we came out with our story in 2016, it was April 18, 2016. What happened was there was another hearing, I think a month later, and the court framed 13 questions, asked specific questions, and they were all based on that story, all because they finally got the information they were looking for. How have they got this land? Nobody was telling them anything. So when that happened, then of course the judgment in 2018 was based on what all had happened, what all had been exposed.
And so